We go to Germany. Borussia Dortmund will host Union Berlin. We've talked about Gio. I do want to focus on the other prominent American, Brenden Aronson, because I was thinking about this in the last couple of days. How much his stock has fallen in the last 12 months or so. You go back to this time last year. Remember, Aronson had done really well at Salzburg. That earned him a big money move to Leeds United in the Premier League. By the time he arrived, Jesse Marsch was coaching that team. He walked right into the starting lineup, played really well early in the season, dropped some man-of-the-match performances, scored against Chelsea. Leeds fans really took to his energetic style. And we were sitting here about a month into the Premier League campaign and a few weeks out from the World Cup. And the big conversation in U.S. national team circles was that Greg Berhalter had to find a place for Brenden Aronson in the starting lineup. That's all anybody was talking about. Well, he ended up not starting a single game at the World Cup, came on as a sub in all four, and then his form for Leeds really faded the rest of the season. By the end of the campaign, he was viewed as a flop. They unloaded him to Union Berlin, which a lot of us thought was a pretty good destination. He's not a big factor on that team, hasn't really done anything so far. He's still a guy that everybody thinks should be called up for the U.S. and is a decent depth piece, but I don't see anybody suggesting he should be starting anymore. When we talk about this dilemma Greg Berhalter has and all the different possibilities, none of those include Brenden Aronson anymore. So what do you make of where he's at in his career right now?
I think Brenden Aronson is in a long line of players, not just American players, but players in general, that have recognized that their ticket and their key and their skill is forever intertwined with their work ethic and their physical ability. And that can get you very, very far. And from a Brenden Aronson perspective, it has. And each and every time you see him, you say, man, oh man, I want that guy on my team. He works hard. He'll run through a wall, all the different things that we say. The problem is that ultimately that can be not enough. You can't just be the physical player because people will suss you out. People will figure you out. And the good players and the great teams will find a way because they've dealt with physicalness. They've dealt with people that are stronger, faster, bigger. But his I guess soccer acumen, it's, the phrase that people throw around, that's what needs to catch up with his heart and his physical abilities. And it hasn't. But again, the path is not always linear. It's not always going to be smooth. And so this step back now doesn't mean that he can't take two steps forward. I think relative to the national team, to your point, Mosse, again, with Tyler Adams out and the midfield kind of in flux here, but with Gio Reyna coming back, he's going to have to show something more. And we talk so much about this generation, and I would put him part of this generation of U.S. men's national team players coming to fruition in 2026. Well, what does that mean? It means that they get better. It means that they improve. It means that they see the game better. And unless and until Brenden Aronson starts to do that, he's going to suffer. And it's not because he doesn't have heart. It's not because he doesn't work hard or anything like that. It's just because from a soccer perspective, he is not keeping up with the rest of them.
One last bonus one. AC Milan away to Genoa in Serie A, so we'll see what Pulisic, Moose, and company can do there. But we transition to Major League Soccer. We are taping...
Before we do that, Mosse, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Before we do that, can I just say something about Union Berlin? I read a wonderful article in The Athletic who are following this team around this year because, the fans are a little pissed off about having to play their Champions League matches away from their home field, which is awesome, by the way, but it's much more intimate. And it was really interesting to hear some of the fans, the German fans, talk about how they're actually okay. Not all of them, but some of them are okay with the fact that they're kind of spreading the wealth and they're bringing people more into the tent because now they're playing their games in 70,000 seat stadium. And the thinking is, let's get as many people in as possible. And I actually like that. Now, there's plenty of fans there that are kind of protective, and I get it. And they don't want new fans coming in, and they want to kind of relive every single week what their experience that they have in the comforts of their own stadium and all that kind of stuff. But if you get a chance, check it out because it's an interesting look into the psyche of not just fans, but German fans. And whenever you have talks about supporters and fans, the German culture oftentimes is pointed to. And it's interesting to hear this balance and this back and forth and this tug of war for fans as to bringing more people into the tent or keeping our little tent as it is going forward. And not everybody comes down on the side that you think. So interesting.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops every week. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.